The news never stops. Calabios Pharmaceuticals just fired CEO Martin Shkreli following his arrest last week on charges of securities fraud and conspiracy. He's the one in the hood. But Shkreli comes out swinging in an interview this morning with the Wall Street Journal, claiming the federal government targeted him because of his controversial price hikes on life-saving drugs like Daraprim. So, back with me is Liz Peek, and joining me is Fox Business senior correspondent Charlie Gasparino. Charlie, you know, before we get into the issue of securities fraud...
About my tie.
Your tie looks great. You're stylish. We're wearing the same suit here. Rupert Murdoch. But here's the deal. It is plausible, is it not, that the government actually did say, you know what, buddy, you threw it in our face, we're going to throw it back at you?
You know, generally that's... I will say this. Often what happens is they start on an investigation, and sometimes the charges, the explosive charges they start with don't pan out, so they get you on tax evasion, like Al Capone. I don't think that they start on something this complicated and, you know, they just pulled this out of their rear ends, excuse the language. I mean, I think they actually went in there. They've been looking at this for a long time. It's very...
2012. It's very... It takes place with the retrofit.
Right, so it's very hard to... Listen, when did he do the price? When did he hike the price on those drugs?
6 months ago.
Okay, so it's very hard to put together a case this complicated. This is pretty complicated. I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent. He says he's innocent, but it's very hard to put this together in a blink. Like, okay, he raised the prices, let's go after him. Generally, that's not the way it goes. When they get you on the low-hanging fruit, it's because they've looked at all this other stuff, right? They started with something bad, but they've looked at it, and then only thing that's left is the low-hanging fruit.
Liz, no one denies that he is a genius, but, you know, he's 32 years old. He's a walking trigger warning, as the kids on college campuses would say now. Someone needs to tell him to shut up.
I think he's a jerk. Look, this is like one of those movies you watch where there's no good characters. I think the government clearly overplayed its hand, if you will. They really aren't going after him about raising drug prices. They have something to do with his hedge fund management and promising investors more than they were delivered, you know, some years ago, right? I'm saying that's what the case is about. But on the other hand, he looks like a complete jerk, and he's basically been taunting the government, which is very concerned, and he should have known they were very concerned about pharmaceutical prices rising and basically belittling the Obamacare narrative.
But let's be real clear here. I don't know. I'm not an expert at Obamacare or the price structure of these, how to price drugs, but he was basically taking advantage of a completely legal loophole.
He bought the rights to the drug and he jacked up the price. This is what he said.
I mean, that's not against the law.
Listen, this is the quote he issued.
But that's not what he's being charged for.
Right. This is a Ponzi-like scheme because he used money he wasn't allowed to use to pay off investors in a scheme of law. Quote, the indictment itself is lacking rigor. I think it doesn't tell my side of the story at all. Most people don't know the real Martin Shkreli. By the way, meet the real Martin Shkreli. This is video of him doing what he does best on Saturday after he was released from jail.
What was he doing?
He's playing the guitar.
Well, I think his lawyer is probably telling him right now, indictments generally don't give your side of the story.
I was going to say, that's not really what they're intending.
Unfortunately, that's what it is. It's a charging document. I would just say this. It looks like they put a lot of time into this investigation. It looks like, I'm not a lawyer, but it looks like they have it pretty much nailed down as to what he said and what he didn't say and how he promised. But
again, 4 guys crashed down his door to handcuff him and take him in at dawn for something about lying to investors. I mean, I think this goes way beyond the norm,
just so you know, they tipped off 2 select media organizations 3 days before.
They do this all the time. We should point out that this is standard operating. Is this Preet, is this Southern District?
No, it was out of Brooklyn.
Okay, but generally from the U.S. Attorney's Office, particularly Southern District and Preet, this is standard operating procedure on white-collar crimes. We're going to show the public. They do this to satisfy the public's lust for blood. For blood following the financial collapse, even though none of these guys do anything.
Would Martin Shkreli have been indicted if he had kept his mouth shut after doing what he did to the drug prices?
Yes, I think so. I just think they put a lot of time into the case. The question is, are they using him as yet another one of their insider? You know, a lot of those guys that got off on insider trading charges that got reversed after the Second Circuit ruled that it's much more difficult to prove insider trading were hauled into court and arrested just like that. Michael Steinberg, whose case has been dismissed, is the most prominent one. They do this all the time. So presumption of innocence before guilt just because you do this. And it really is kind of like a cheap media buy for these prosecutors to go out there and film
But I think the only reason they would have done it is because he had so infuriated the government by as I say, taunting them about, I don't care what you think, I'm going to raise this drug price 1,000%, even though it's something...
5,000.
Excuse me, 5,000%, even though it's a critically needed drug. And it is totally, it's totally on.
I got to cut you off.
It's not very popular.
Yeah, I agree.
Got to cut you off at this point. I think the bottom line is it was so much easier during the Cold War. The Soviet Union was the bad guys, not people like
Now we have all bad guys.
All right, thank you. Stick